with that comes a great deal of knowledge of the markets in the oil and the futures and commodities, which are reflected in his current books. He also has taken a great interest in different religions and how it affects politics, which will come up in the second book. He wrote Retribution for Acts of Terrorism. He has already given book reviews in Fort Lauderdale, Aspen, Colorado, and has gotten great reviews on Amazon.com if you go on and read what they say about the book. You will have the ability to hear from him today about this book, the first book, which I loved. And I'm very critical, and I'm very objective, and I will say it's terrific for those of you who haven't read it. And the second book, which is just being released this week, which we have with us, is The Formula. And that has a very interesting twist as well. For those of you who read the first book, there is a character in there, a detective, Harry McNally, who is coming back by special request of the wife. And if you, I do want to tell you, Retribution for Acts of Terrorism is with a screenwriter in LA. The screenplay has been completed. Harry McNally becomes a greater character than actually portrayed in the book, which makes it even more exciting for the screenplay. So with a little luck, some of you will say, I met him at a book signing, and now you're at his movie. So keep your fingers crossed on that one. It's with great pleasure that I introduce to you my husband, physician, author, Dr. Joel Feiss.
I'm going to just talk here if that's all right. I thought I would just tell you a little bit about both books because they're very similar in many ways. They're both character-driven, both very contemporary, and very easy to read. In fact, somebody told me after he finished the first book, he read the whole book, over 250 pages, and he never found a big word. It's true. And I found the same thing in my second book. It's very, very, very fast and very easy reading. It's there's no hidden metaphors. It's not that kind of a book. It's just it's a fast, easy read. The main plots involve a death in Aspen in both books. However, they differ in that the stories take two entirely different lines. There is a lot of history in it, a lot of religion, and a lot of things that focus on the Middle East. And that's basically what these two books are about. There's twists and turns in them, and I'll field any questions or anything that anybody has to say, would like to ask. I may read it. Let's take some questions. I think we'll do a little better with that, maybe.
Why you choose Colorado?
Why Colorado?
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time there. I've skied there and hiked there for forever. I still do it, probably over 30 years. I know the area very well. It's very beautiful there. It's very easy to describe. You'll see if you read the books that they're, it's just an easy place to describe. And I spent so much time there that it was just natural for me to write about it.
Is the second book a continuation?
No.
It's...
I bring back one of the characters for a very short part, but the characters are totally different.
I see.
And the character names are kind of interesting. In the first book, they were names of the girls that work in my office. So each of them had a part. It was really kind of fun. In the second book, I use all the grandchildren's names. I have 12 grandchildren. So each of them have a part, and in addition to their family members. In the third book, that I'm writing now, I'm using people's names that bought the first two books. If you want to get into the third book, you need to buy the first book.
So what happened with Laura?
Right. Well, there are two characters in the second book. The first one is the person that gets murdered. She's a gastroenterologist that discovers this formula. And the reason her name is Laura is my daughter's name because she read my first book and she didn't like it. So I killed her off in the second book. Now she doesn't say anything bad about anything that I write. So it's very easy. The other lead detective is named, and in the second book is named Ronnie, and that's my sister's name. And she became the hero in this one because she finished the first book and said, "There's no Ronnie in this book." So now she became the lead. It's very easy to get into my books. You don't have to do a lot. You complain a little bit and you're in.
How do we get a part in the movie?
Good question.
You have to suck up to me.
Well, you mentioned the movie. Who could you see playing Harry?
Harrison
Well, hold
Ford.
it.
Harrison Ford.
I'd like to see what other people think. I mean, you started the book, right?
Yeah.
What
I'm
do you
enjoying
think?
Harrison Ford, that would
Yeah.
be great.
Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood. I
He's
think
too
Clint
old.
is a little too
Yeah,
old.
a little too old.
Too old.
He's a little too old
For this character.
for this
Yeah.
particular character. Yeah.
Kevin
Think about
Costner,
that.
we like also. And he has a place in Aspen, so.
Who does?
Oh.
Kevin
Oh,
Costner.
that's
Did he read your book?
I doubt
We
it.
don't know
Well, why don't you
yet.
send it to him?
Well, I already wrote
She
it.
has tried, believe me. She's done everything but knock on his door, you know.
It's very interesting.
I read the book over a year ago. It was handed down to me. Jessica got it from Amy Golden, and then it just kind of worked its way to me, and then I got it back to Amy, but I was fascinated by the book. I really loved it. And it's very rare that you get to, I don't want to say know the author, because they obviously don't know you well, but whenever you're reading a book, the author is always very anonymous. You don't know anything about the author, but it was a lot of fun reading a book where you know the places. He describes Las Olas Boulevard, and I guess people who live in California, because so much is set out there, you know, it may be blasé for them, but I found it enjoyable to see the things that you described in Fort Lauderdale. I don't know Colorado, but for us locals, there were parts of the book that were very enjoyable because you're able to identify with it. And obviously I knew a lot of the names and the characters,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
felt really close to home reading the book, and I enjoyed it immensely. The story was wonderful. And of course, the villains got their just dessert, which
You can't tell about that.
I didn't give any more. I just said the villains.
Didn't tell.
I didn't tell any more.
I think you're right, because one of the really great characteristics of this book is that later you remember the descriptions and you remember the scenes. They really stick in your mind. And there are lots of books that doesn't happen, you know, you just forget about it.
I find it fascinating that you could be, you know, a physician and just know so much about all these other areas. And how do you absorb all this information and put it into your book? I just find, well, I guess that makes you the Renaissance man.
No, it makes me old, you know.